Here
Yep.
we are.
All right. I'll run it. Let's let some people get in here, just like before. Welcome to How to Double Your Clients and Cut Your Writing Time in Half. We know that everybody doesn't get here on time, so we're going to give everybody a little bit of time to get into the forum. Everybody get on the live. So when you jump in, step one, who are you? Where are you from? So we can understand how many people we're talking to who stayed up late. We're going to see who's going to be the winner for who is the furthest away from us. So we know that they really wanted to do this. What's up? So we got Brian, Laura, Marketing Zion, Hack, Christy C. Great to see everybody. So yeah, we're going to have some fun today.
Mm-hmm.
Hallsville, Missouri. Okay. Sweet. I'm actually not not far from where you are. Allentown, PA. Chi-Town. Is Sunny up in Chi-Town right now? Virginia, London, UK. That's what I'm talking about. Those are the people. Music City, USA. Argentina. Love it. Vancouver. Oh, I see one. Austria. Temecula. I used to be down in that area. I used to live in Marietta, right next to Temecula. San Antone, near Philly. Eastern Idaho. NYC. Chris O, I don't think they're ready for today. What do you think?
I don't think so either.
Oh, now we really have one. We have Czech Republic.
Wow.
David from Czech Republic, what made this so important for you to get on this live with us? Just put something so we can understand what made this guy from the Czech Republic say, I'm going to jump on this thing. Singapore, oh my goodness, I don't
Oh, we got a
understand.
Singapore. It's like 3 a.m. over there or something. It's got to be, right? Or is it 12 hours or
Put
what's
in what time
the
it is in Singapore and put in what time it is in the Czech Republic. Yep, we'll give everybody just a couple more minutes, and then we're going to start up. And whoever's not with us, they're just going to have to jump on this thing. 1 a.m.
Wow.
Thank you so much for being here with us. We will definitely make it worth your while. This will not be a waste of your time to be on this call with us, because you'll get some goodies definitely from this. In Singapore, what time is it? Yep, that unfair advantage to nail it. That's why we're here.
Brian said we're all my homies from Vietnam. I have all the Vietnamese copywriters. They
7
like
p.m. in Prague. Okay.
it's blowing up in there.
All right. Okay, let's get this puppy started. So again, welcome to How to Double Your Clients and Cut Your Writing Time in Half. I'm Rob Tillman. I have the infamous Orzi, Chris Orzakowski here. And we have the person who was our third judge, Mr. Chris Pearson. If you don't know Chris Pearson, you will definitely by the end of this time we're together. Chris is just a 50,000 foot part of his story, and why he's a judge here with us is because he's already been through ECA. He went through it in one of the earlier iterations because he was also a fan of Chris O. He looked at everything Chris was doing. He knew that there was a path to get there. He followed those Chris O trainings, and now he is kicking arse and taking names in his own agency world. So because they don't know you, Chris, let's make sure we start off by telling them who you are and what you do, so they can understand why you are fully qualified to be able to look at emails with us and understand how this goes.
Yeah, for sure. So I basically started in Copy Chief and working with basically the courses and training there. Found ECA, found Copy Chief. Essentially just followed the blueprint, followed the framework, and took action on it. And didn't really, I'd say, add in the stuff that I thought would work. I just did what I was told to do, and I started getting results. Been in marketing and sales for a little bit, but once I started using the frameworks that Orzi teaches, and the lessons that Kevin and the team teach, I basically went from struggling to barely make 3 to 5K a month as a copywriter to now running an agency with 2 partners and a couple employees, and anywhere from 7 to 10 clients we partner with throughout the year. So
How much was the advice that you got? How much were the frameworks that you got from Orzi and some of the advice that we were able to give in Copy Chief? Not, you don't have to give an exact dollar, but let people understand that this is not little bitty, that this is not, oh, I'm gonna get a couple $1,000s worth of things from this. Like, give them a framework so they get a picture of how big this stuff has
yeah,
been to your life.
yeah. So for my clients, help make them millions, 8 figures. In my agency, we're making multiple 6 figures a year that I take home, a couple mil a year when it comes to the agency total. So going from barely making rent to running an agency at this level it's been life changing, honestly. And so the stuff that Orzi teaches with ECA and the frameworks, and then what Kevin and the team, Rob, you, everybody there, it's totally turned my life, like turned it over, changed it.
So thank you for that. Now, Orzi, my man, I see the
Yo.
war room behind you. He broke out the shirt to bust out the muscles and let everybody know he's been working out a little bit, getting ready for this. He's been getting ready, everybody, to be on this call with you all. When you started to, we're gonna have a challenge winner on this thing, and we were going over them yesterday. We were going through the submissions, and we were seeing how people were using your frameworks, how they were using the AI, and don't tell them what were the keys for the winner. But one of the things that I want you to just first start leaning into is what are some things you saw which were the challenges and why they really do need to understand that the frameworks matter and ECA matters and the guidance they're going to get. So share with everybody what were some of the reasons why some of the people who entered the challenge may have had a couple challenges.
Yeah, I mean, within any given email, like as we're looking through the submissions, like there's there's obviously like the underlying framework. And whenever like people say framework, like the way I look at it is like, when you're building a house, like every house has walls and a foundation, and windows and doors, and
Mhm.
but obviously every house looks very different, from the street or even from the inside, like the way you decorate it, what colors you paint it, what materials you use, all those kind of things. But like there's always the underlying structure. So like what was really cool about the AI tool is like it helps you nail that structure and kind of unpack the arguments in a very logical, in a copy logical type way, right? I think where people did really well, they infused little elements of story and little elements of specific details, and then they kind of almost like the house was built and they just decorated it very nicely with those little pieces of personality, right? I think where people kind of veered off track is when they tried to really mess with the core framework. It's kind of like with a sales letter, like if you lead with the features and benefits, and then you go to the origin story afterwards, and then you do like the risk reversal, and then you go into like the headline, like that would be a weird looking sales letter. Like it wouldn't really make sense, right? And sometimes what people were
Mhm.
doing was trying to just mishmash the structure of how it came out. So I think the people that did really well just focused in on like what are the key pieces that we need to do to take this text that we got, which is a sales argument, and just make it their own and make it unique and make it stand out and make it so that way, like when someone saw it, they would never be able to tell. Not that really like you could tell it was AI with some of
Mhm.
the other ones that didn't do as well, but like you want someone to get that email and just be enthralled with it because you're hooking them with the right elements, because you're keeping them on the hook with specificity and little details, because that's always the thing what people say is like with AI stuff, it's like, yeah, but like if you're doing storytelling, like it's not my, it's like I've said this before, like the AI wasn't with me when I was at my kid's soccer game or whatever, right? Like, and that's fine, that's okay, but like
Mhm.
that's just one little piece of the email that's very easy to add or change or amend. But the rest of the sales argument, the way that you segue to it, and the way that you issue the call to action, all those kind of things are super important. Are some of those pieces that can be easily assembled very fast using this tool.
Oh my goodness. I hope everybody's gathering all these nuggets because this man, if you were to try to hire him to consult with you or this other fella, Chris P, I don't. You wouldn't be using the money in your wallet. You're gonna have to pull out the credit card. It's more than what you can pull out your wallet for an average person to get this amount of information and time from these guys. So it's really important, and I hope everybody is paying attention. My part of this thing, and make sure that we keep this rolling and making sure that people understand, is I got to see all the back end of what everybody was doing, and I'll go a little bit into that. But before I go into that, I want to actually thank every single person who made a submission to the challenge. We had something around 20 some odd people who actually put the challenge into the Copy Chief community, but there were over 65 people who actually did the AI challenge. They just didn't move forward and actually make their submissions. So I want to actually thank both sets of people. Everybody who was confident enough to test the AI and check it out and try to figure out how that thing worked, but also the people who took that next step and everybody who went ahead and got over their fears. And we know that there's a lot of fears in the confidence factor, and they actually went forward and they posted their challenges inside the community. So every single person who got over that first one, thank you. We actually hope that the reason why you're able to do that is because you felt more comfortable doing it because of those frameworks. One of the things that Orzi really leaned into when he was talking about how and what this is from the beginning is, as we're all going through that journey of becoming a better writer, as we're going through the journey, especially in this email world, is people do not trust themselves. What the frameworks allow you to do is say, hey, you know what? I feel confident enough to trust myself and to put this out into the world. So everybody who took that step, you're already halfway there. Wouldn't you agree, guys? It's so hard
100%.
for somebody to actually do it. And that's what we wanted everybody to feel comfortable enough in doing, is not staying back in the background and just playing, but actually putting themselves out there with this challenge. I'm going to go and start showing some of these submissions, and we're going to do a countdown with the submissions. Instead of starting out with just the winner, what we're going to do is we're going to give the honorable mentions first. And there's something that if you get an honorable mention, I want you to reach out to me because there's something I'm going to personally do for you if you got an honorable mention and you reach out to me, okay? So I'm going to start the honorable mentions first. Honorable mention number 1, Simon Cashmore. Why his is because he did something very important for everybody to understand. What he did was he loaded this thing up with a lot of information. And what he did was he just edited it down. What he understood is he said, hey, it's a much better process to edit something and instead of trying to figure out and put things in. When we go through and I share with everybody how to use these features of the AI tools best, I'm going to give you a whole lot of tricks of the trade to understand how to set up your prompt best or set up your inputs best to give you the best output. He did something that was really important. He said, let me make sure I'm putting in as many details as possible. And then you can find when you go into his, he just edited it down. He let it do the work. And then he just started picking things out and adding a little bit of tone and voice into it. Okay. So he is number 1 for our honorable mention. For our second honorable mention, then I hate the way that this thing does this. So no, Vimeo is just hard to share because it doesn't, the way that it
It's
shows your
weird.
sharing screens. Yeah. Is that the one? This one right here. I think this is our honorable mention number 2. Christy Goldfeder is our honorable mention number 2. This is one that actually, Chris, remember we were looking at this last night, Chris O,
Mhm.
you really, you took a liking to it. Can you share with everybody why, what she did, how she started off and what she was able to do, what made this thing really step up?
Yeah, I mean, I thought what she did a good job of was taking it and just making it sound a little bit more personal and a little bit more conversational. Like a lot of the structure she kept somewhat intact, which I think was cool. And the reason I keep going back to that is because like the goal for you as a writer is to be able to pump out good quality work that's going to do a good sales job. Like obviously, like if you take 2 hours to kind of tinker with every single thing word by word, like yeah, you know, cool. Maybe you made a really, awesome. You made a masterpiece of an email, right? But like as a writer, you need to get your stuff to where it's like 90 to 95% ready to go. Excuse me, and then ship it, right? And she did it in 13 minutes, which was really cool because a lot of people. I mean, I talked to the writers, and some of them are like, it takes me 2 hours to write an email. So now it takes you 13 minutes, right? And like what happens to your effective hourly rate when you can pump out an email in 13 minutes, Like I always tell that story back when I was a school teacher and I would, work for 8 hours a day, plus I had to commute too. And I'd make $300 before taxes, like as part of my salary. And then I'd go
Mhm.
home and I'd write like 3 emails for a client, and it might take me, 2 to 3 hours, right? Let's just call it 3 hours for easy math. So like the EHR was like almost 3 times as good working in my business than it was in my day job. But now, if you think about it, like if I was getting paid $100 an email, it took me 3 hours, right? What if I could now write those 3 emails in 1 hour, right? Like then my EHR goes from $100 an hour approximately to $300 an hour, or maybe you charge more, right? Or maybe like there's other people where you've been able to pump out some copy faster. Like depending on what project you have, like if you're doing a large scale launch, or every client's a little bit different. Like some clients might need that super personal story that you pulled from their podcast. Like not every client needs that. Some clients, depending on what they sell, they might need something that is a more product focused or feature focused, depending on where it is in the funnel. So like you're going to have a lot of different types of clients and projects. So like if you can get your speed down to the point where you can pump things out that are like ready for your client's eyes within 6 minutes, that's awesome. And it's kind of like, when we got our countertops in our kitchen. This is the second time. In our old house, we redid our kitchen too. In our old house, a guy came out, and he did the measurements, and he had the laser, and like you put the laser up against the wall, and it measures like down to like the millimeter, like exactly what distance is. Like they do the whole countertop, and it takes I don't know 10-20 minutes. He's in and out, right? This other guy was
Mhm.
here for like 4 hours because he had a measuring tape and he was using a pencil. And I was like, hey, they both got the job done. They both did a good job. But like, I'd rather only have the guy in my house for 20 minutes rather than for 4 hours, right? And like, essentially, as long as the countertop comes out cool, like, I don't care. I'd prefer if it took you less time, right? Um,
Mhm.
but like, I don't care. And like, that's how your clients will feel because they don't care about how long you tinkered with. They don't care about any of that. They just care about what is the result and how precise is it. So like, if you can use this tool, like they're not going to go and do it. That's the thing. Like your clients aren't going to go and mess with ChatGPT. They're not going to go and mess with this software. They're not going to go and mess with any software. They're not going to go and do that because they're running their business. And they just need to know that someone is capable and competent and can produce good work. And that's what this tool, it removes a lot of the burden from you, for some of the mental burden and like actual like physical burden, the things that fatigue you, like when you're writing hour after hour
Mhm.
after hour. Like this removes that. It keeps you fresher, so you could spend more of your energy and bandwidth on the things that are important, like adding taste and style and editing the important pieces. Doing the interior design instead of doing the construction is always a lot more fun.
Absolutely. Now we are getting into three, two, and number one. We're going to do something that we didn't even say we are going to do. And even if it has to come out of my pocket because I didn't ask the chief if I can do this, but I am going to do this. The number three and the number two people, because they came in those places, they're going to get a Copy Chief t shirt too. So you reach out to me and I'm going to make sure that we get you taken care of, even if it comes out of my pocket, because the work that you did, there is no doubt about this thing, that this thing was truly worth it. And it's going to help a lot of people to see the things that you all did. Number three was actually the hardest one for us to come to a conclusion on. Chris P and I, we had a total different viewpoint on who was going to be number three, and we had to bring in Chris O. So Orzi had to be the person who actually selected number three, and he has a personal reason why he selected number three. So, Chris O, going to why you said this is our incredible number three on this countdown from 3 to 1.
Yeah.
Gemma,
So Gemma's email was good. It was solid. It as we were looking at it, like given the context, like there was one thing she said in the first line. she had a toddler with me, as she was doing it. But the funny thing is, like, when people think that they're going to become a writer, they think that they're going to, be in a wood paneled study with a typewriter and a pipe and and a tweed jacket and in a comfy leather chair, and they're going to light a candle and like wait for the muse to. But like that's not how it works, like at least not in my house, as you can see. I'm not in the wood paneled office, not yet anyway, right? But like writing is like, especially being a copywriter and being like a working writer and like having a career and fitting this into your life and into the ebbs and flows and different seasons of your life, like it's not always the prettiest picture. Like I have a lot of times I'll do sales calls, like I'll have one of my kids with me, like I'll be writing, I'll be like on a deadline to do certain things. But like that's why I love this submission in particular. And because this tool helps you get through, again, some of the grunt work construction that has
Mm-hmm.
to take place for you to construct copy, right? And this is so demonstrative of that because this was a great email. And like most of the time, like some people would not be able to get, depending on whatever their situation, it doesn't have to be this situation. It's a lot of different situations in life. Maybe, you're in a crowded coffee shop and you're on a deadline and you forgot to bring your headphones, your AirPods die, and then you're distracted. Like there's always different like weird life situations that are going to get in the way, or there's something weighing on your mind, something that's stressing you out and pulling your thoughts away. Like how do you compete and win and pump out good copy when you're when you're facing whatever, work related adversity to get the project done, right? So that was what I really liked about this, because as I was reading this email too, like she definitely added a lot to the structure, which is fine, but she added a lot of personal, like as you
That
can see,
was the
like the
key.
length. Yeah, like she had a lot of personality and personal language and conversational language, and uh, not embellished it. That's not the word, but like she really dressed it up a lot. Maybe for this particular piece of the funnel, it was a little more than what might have been called for this style of
There we
email, which is
go.
why we have it as third. But it
Mm-hmm.
was still really solid, and I liked it. And I liked how she took it and iterated upon it and added to it.
Now, a couple crazy things about this. Gemma, I don't know if you all can know what this means, but if can you see me hovering across what it just shows the one. This was her very first post ever. She literally just joined Copy Chief. She put in her first post, and it was her taking part in this challenge. We want to thank you for doing that, Gemma. And you did it with a toddler in your lap. You got this whole thing done. So anybody else who has excuses, get rid of all of that nonsense. And the thing that made me laugh when I read this was she says, I just stole a paragraph from this and use it in a client email. Orzi GPT for the win. Think about that she was able to actually first post, does this thing, and even be able to use what she got in something real for a client. That's pretty crazy, you don't think?
100%. And that's the goal. Like it's like when I first started, I remember like I was working at NeuroGym, and they had like a whole legit team. It was one of my first clients where like it wasn't just like me and the founder or me and like the entrepreneur. It was like there was a marketing department, and like I was a piece of that department. And I remember being in meetings and they would talk about like, oh, do we have assets for this campaign, right? And I was like, why are they like calling these things assets? I was younger. I like hadn't been in the business world. I came from the teaching world. That wasn't like a term that was really used. But I
Mhm.
just kind of like went with it. And then it wasn't until like years later when I really understood like, oh, a messaging asset, like it's an asset because it's something you use to make yourself money. Like that's the definition of an asset. So like when you have a messaging asset, like when you take a piece of copy that can be repurposed easily either for another medium or for another campaign, or for you as a copywriter, if you have a framework or a formula, or even a piece of copy that's generic enough that you can use across different clients, that is an asset for your business, right? And that's the important piece. Like that's what this is about. Like you now have a machine that creates assets for you. Like that's really cool, I think.
Okay, so we're to number two. Number two was one that I absolutely loved. I'm biased on this one because I absolutely love this one. I've read this one over and over again. I was like, this is something incredible. So that is Pamela. Pamela absolutely understood what this challenge was. She went back and she said she did it twice because she put in a fake name. But this is important. Took 17 minutes. I'm telling her she probably, by coming back and doing the double, she probably edited her herself out of first place. She may have actually been in first place. I'm telling you, this thing was so good. But we saw the little tweaks that were happening here. But what she did was exactly that. She used the output. She put in enough details in here that it gave her a great starting place. When she went in to do these edits, yes, she's going in and you feel the storyline building inside of this thing. And what you find is didn't change she didn't change. Look at these two things. She did not change the format, the framework, what it's trying to do. She just slightly changed some of the details that she knew were important. She slightly added a little bit more personality, just like this, ready for another adventure. This is one of the things I really loved about this submission. Because it's in the trust phase, she's already engaging with this person. So she, with this ready for another adventure, instead of ready for an adventure, ready for another adventure, implies we already have some sort of relationship, that she's already connected with this person and she's just moving into what she wants them to do next. So I really love that about this. I really loved how it was easy to read. It was fluid. Each line that you read, it forced you to go to the next line. Chris P, what did you think about this one? Because you had a couple comments on it.
Yeah, this email from Pamela, it's the big promise plus the contrast. I think got me because when you make a big promise, and then you can contrast it with an emotion of some kinds, conquer your inner fears and have a blast doing it. That's really sticky to me. It makes you kind of look. It's a pattern interrupt, and then you have the same thing with the story. Going from the first level to the top level in zip line. It really kept me reading because I wanted to know what the top level was like in the description and just what that experience would be like. So
Just on the money. Again, you having agency clients, would you be fine just to send this? Would you be okay with this slightly touched thing that's basically 17 minutes? Would you be okay using this? Would you hire this type of person to help support your kind of agency?
yes, I'm already have some people helping me with this, and it really comes down to when I'm looking at copy from people that help me. I look at the framework and I look at the idea and I look at things that are going to keep people reading. The words are probably like number three on the list that I look for. I look for the offer and I look for the framework we're using to introduce that offer to the customer. And however that ends up looking, as long as it's within the brand parameters, we're sending it because I want to get feedback. I want to test the audience. I want to see what they're going to do with it. Picking apart things and being too perfect with it, like Horsey said, get 85-90% of the way there and then send it. We're trying to make money, not write a poetry piece. So yeah, the answer is yes.
That's the
Can I
key.
can I can
Yeah.
I jump in? There's one thing I just want to comment on this email too, which I really liked about it is it puts like the story, it like puts you in the driver's seat of the story. It's
Hmm.
like you almost are like future pacing your way through the experience itself and getting like emotionally attached to the experience, which is awesome. And like it's really cool to see like that this is what came out of it, because like this is a technique that we teach in the course and that I use all the time. Like when I want the reader to be involved in not just reading a story about someone else, it's like they're reading a story about themselves from the future. So, and this just absolutely nailed it. So I thought it was great.
So everybody sees there was a way that we got through all of these items. There was something that people, this is what Chris O and Chris P do every single day. They keep on sharing something that's so important. And before we get to that number one, the person who won this thing, I want everybody to understand it is the framework, and everybody needs to understand the framework. So before we go into the winner, I want to share some details that are extra important about the ones that we actually chose for number three and number two that helped them to get there. Some of the things that they did that absolutely helped them to get there were the background that they put in. So for Gemma's, I'm going to go into hers a little bit. What she put as the inputs are what helped her to make sure that the outputs came out. Remember, the tool does not replace a human. The human has to do some thinking. The human has to have thought about what are they trying to convey. They have to understand what is okay and also what is not okay. In the training that we're going to do with the tool inside the course, I'm going to give all the specific details of what to put in every one of them to get the best outputs and to make sure that you don't spend a lot of time tweaking the output, because give you great inputs. But some of the things that I saw, and we purposely didn't give this before we started the challenge because we wanted to see how people would use it, because it's kind of like what they would use in ChatGPT or what they would use anywhere. I was trying to figure out what was the way that people approach these different types of tools, and that's why we waited. But I saw certain people, they did the way that they thought about it. So Gemma, specifically, I'm going to read part of the thing that she put in here to define the voice and tone of the sender. And she said, warm, down to earth, wise, empathetic, with undertones of an outlaw archetype. Outlaw archetype. Do you see that she put these contrasting things? And by putting those in, that's why the output came out the way it was. She understood who she was getting it. She was getting into the voice of the person writing the email. Another thing she did was, because what she was giving was something that had it had some success stories built into it. But she also understands, she shows she has an understanding about what is acceptable and not acceptable in ads and in emails. Because very important, what she wrote in question number 6 was, do not use words prescribe, treat, or diagnose. Fellas, what does that tell you? She understands this, right? She
Mm-hmm.
said, do not use words prescribe, treat, or diagnose. She said the founder developed the protocol after running 10,000 tests in the clinic. The program has over 4,000 graduates. One graduate used the course to get 240 points towards her PhD. Those details, they showed up in the output, but they showed up not in just one place. They were spread through the story because it understands, because of Chris O's framework, where to put those things. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, yeah.
By putting in those right inputs, it makes it so that it's so simple to get to what's coming out. For Pamela's, it was another one where it was pretty funny to see the background and understand, if you put that human element, like Pamela's really did, it went into the human part of it. And in her voice and tone, she said excited and friendly, like Joanna Goddard of Kupojfo. So she gave a specific .com. She gave a website to say it's using this type of voice. And I think that also helped her for why it was so simple for her edits, because she set it off on a tone of how it's going to flow. The other thing she did was she was very descriptive in how she put in question number 6. Paint the picture of an adventure high above the trees, where it's you against your fear. That feeling of overcoming something you didn't think you could do, and how that feeling carries through long and after you've returned to real life. Talk about bonding with friends when you do it as a group. Think about the thought pattern she had. Like, I'm looking at Chris O, and he's like, oh my goodness. Isn't that what
Yeah.
came across in her output? Literally the AI output, before she even had to do any edits. Do you see where that came across?
Yeah, because I mean that's what a good writer does, is they do that work in their head. It's like, this is the thing. This tool like almost helps you go manually through that thought process as you're doing, entering everything in, and then it's really no different. Like, and that's why, like, I view this stuff not as a, and this is always the position that I've held, like, it's not a replacement. Or
Mhm.
someone said this. I think it was actually Alex Catoni, one of her videos. She said, it's not a takeover, it's a tool, right?
Mhm.
And I think she's very on point with that analogy, because, like, what's the difference between, like, you still have to think through what you want it to say. It's not magic. You know what I mean? Like, it's super powerful, just like the same way, like the evolution of like people used to like transmit information via orally, like story wise, and then it was like clay tablets and papyrus and then pencils and ballpoint pens, and then it was typewriters, and then it was word processors, which was like a
Hmm.
huge step up, right? Like when you got your hands on like Microsoft Word or Google Doc compared to like a typewriter, right? And now this is just that next iteration, right? So like it's a tool that helps you construct and convey the ideas that are in your head, but it's like it can't press its own buttons. You know what I mean? Like it could just generate text, but like it's not the text that you want it to generate. Like, that has to come from you, right? Like you have to be the one pulling the trigger here. And the way that you think and the inputs that you give are going to create the better outputs, which is what, all of us have been saying from the beginning. So it just has those better corrals and better, like, parameters around it. So it gets closer to that end result instead of, the other tools out there.
But the other part about that is just how much how much of that do they get in what you're teaching them in ECA? Like in ECA and what those 14 frameworks are, and also not just the 14 frameworks, but you put them in that thought pattern of what are they trying to get out of the email, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
what you shared with me before is you shared with me, you talked about how, wow, one of my biggest challenges, and you said that one of your biggest challenges was you teach people these frameworks. You give them all the insight like you're talking about now about how to get in the mind of this thing, of not in the AI, but in the mind of the writer that needs to do this. But it's such a problem because people just they get their thoughts and they can't get their thoughts on that paper. They're so afraid to start writing. They're so afraid to try out actually writing that email that they have all these great thoughts and they just won't do it. So that was part of what you talked about and how you developed the 14 frameworks and saying, well, this will help them give them confidence to be able to say, you know what, even if my thought isn't fully formed, I can put something in here and I can get out something that's going to give them something that'll give them confidence to keep on iterating and writing this thing.
Yeah. Let me give you guys another example of the concept that Rob's talking about. I think it's going to help you guys. So like when I was doing my last book cover, or my upcoming book, The Moat, like in my mind, I like kind of had an idea of what it should look like. But again, I'm not like a graphic designer. I mean, I could use Canva, but it's not going to end well. It's not going to be great, right? And I was like, I could mess around with this, but I was like, I really just wish I had like a few dozen or even like 100, 200 like variations to just like look through and be like, yes, yes, no, 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 yes, yeah, and right, and like chisel it down that way. Because like this, it's the same thing with copy, right? Because you think that there's a million variations. When you start seeing them in front of you, and if it's as simple as clicking a button and it generates, and you say, that's close. And I like this piece about it, but I don't like this piece, right? That is
Mhm.
what makes the job of constructing your copy a lot easier. So like when I did this contest on 99 Designs, I did like the super high end package. I paid like $1,300 for all the bells and whistles. And they gave me like 150 designs. And I was like, oh, that's freaking
Mhm.
great. So I sat there, my wife and I, and we're like, nope, 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 save that one, nope, 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 save that one, that one, get rid of the rest, right? And that's what we did. We were able to chisel it down that way. And obviously, like, I paid money for that, but like, could I have used an AI tool to do the same thing? Like, of course I could have, right? I'm not an image guy. But
Uh-huh.
if I was a graphic designer myself, that's probably what I would have done. But like, let me generate a bunch of different things, see which ones make sense. Blah, blah, blah. Same thing with copy. Like, let me get the gist of what it needs to look like, even if I
There
don't know
you
what the
go.
finished product is. And then can I come up with these micro variations? Say, what do I need to tweak here? Is this piece fine? Is that piece fine? Because you probably like especially if you're inexperienced, like you're not going to necessarily know. You think like there's only one right answer. You think because like when you went to school, you did multiple choice quizzes and there's
Yep.
four options and there's only one out of the four that's correct. But like in real life and copywriting, like there might be four right answers. There might be 100 right answers, which is the crazy part. Like there's different, angles and hooks, right? But there's not only one sales message written one way that's going to convert someone. Like, there's definitely a hierarchy in terms of like which ones are stronger based on certain, audiences and those kind of things. But like, there's not only one way, so there might be five different ways to write out a hook and to execute on an idea for a hook that will all get a sale. So that's the thing. Like this gets you to that point quicker where you can say, am I satisfied with this? Or do I need to make this stronger? Do I think this will work? Do I need to, polish some of these pieces, massage it here and there? Is it good enough, or is this idea just shit? I need to scrap it and generate a new piece, right? Like that might be the case too. But again, it gives you that opportunity to iterate faster. That none of us we didn't grow up in the copy world with that stuff. Like I had to do this by hand, you know. So it's yeah, it's legit.
Now, one other thing that we all talked about was something that I don't think, and I'm glad we actually, I'm so glad we were, as we are going over the entries and we started talking, then one of the points that started to come up was similar to what you're saying, but I'm actually going to give it in a little slightly different way. We started to talk about how you don't know what you don't know, and especially you start writing, right? So this thing is about how to double your clients and cut your writing time in half. What I really lean into is the fact that actually in ECA, they get access to all 14 of the different frameworks, but they get them in 3 different places. But even if you only got them in one place, I'm going to share something that I did. So I shared this story with Chris. So I said, hey, let me share with you when I was playing with this, one of the first things that I did. And it was one of those things that made me really excited. One of the things that I did with this, and I'll kind of go here for everybody to see, was you'll get access to be able to take this. And what I did was I opened up, I'm not the only one. I opened up 14 different tabs because I did this. I grabbed the 14 different formulas. And what I did was I put the same input into each one of these different categories. I just cut and paste, and this is part of what I'll teach everybody about the best way and fastest way to use the tool. Is there's a document that I'll share with everybody about how do you develop what goes in these spaces super fast in the easiest way. And then all you have to do is you paste it in here, and then you just try out 14 different variations of what you put in. And it's going to totally change each one of your emails. So with just one idea or one bit of facts about your product, you can get 14 different iterations that are on Chris O's proven formulas. And I was looking at how different they all came out. Chris O, what do you think about that, man? Remember when I was sharing with
Yeah.
that with you?
Yeah. I think it's badass.
What would happen? How much time would that save? Because again, we're talking about cutting down writing time. If you had something like that before now that you, of course, you do have it, but if you had something like that when you were getting started and you were trying to figure out how to learn how to write better emails, what would that have done for you?
Well, I probably would have gotten a lot more sleep and been able to see my wife a lot more in the early days. You know, when I was working 6 hours, 7 hours a night after my after my day job. You know, I used to get home at 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I'd say, "All right, see you at 9:30," and that was every single day, pretty much, except for Friday evenings and Saturday evenings. So it would have just saved me all that time, and I would have had a lot more energy to put into other parts of the business. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. Like writing is just one piece of being a freelancer. Like there's writing, but there's also client management, there's client acquisition, there's business management, there's business development. So there's 4 other areas too that need attention besides the actual operations and the deliverable stuff, right? So it would have helped me probably progress in those other areas a lot faster if I could, you know, churn out the actual content and what I'm handing to the client a lot faster. So like that's one piece of it. And I think it would have, it just would have helped me progress quicker too, because again, like good copywriting, like good results in copy come from good hooks and good, like the execution of the hook. Like obviously that needs to be on point, but like again, like some people focus too much on like, should I use this Oxford comma? Like that's not important. That's not the important piece. Like that's not going to affect conversion. No one's even going to notice that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, should I make my subject line like 7 words versus 8 words? Like, doesn't matter. Like I don't even split those subject lines. It doesn't matter. Like that stuff's not the important part of it. It's like how quickly can you iterate on an idea to where the idea is expressed clearly and cleanly, and it will be received well and it will be acted upon. So like anything you could do to shortcut that process is going to make you more effective as a writer, and it's going to help you develop faster. And it's like reps. It's almost like in the Matrix when when Keanu Reeves, when like he's able to like download books and information, and they're like, "Hey, you want to learn kung fu?" And he's like, "Yeah." And they go, "Boop," they stick a chip in his head, and like, now I know kung fu. Like that would have normally taken years. And I know it's a movie, obviously, right? Like I know it's made up, allegedly. But that's we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But that is like essentially what you're able to do now, because instead of having to type and type and type and type and type and edit and type and edit and type, like you can cut down that piece of it, which is the least important piece, and you could focus more of your brain power on generating the ideas, or even just getting away from the computer because you're spending less time in front of the computer, in front of the screen, because your best ideas will come when you're not at the computer. If you're just pounding on the keys mindlessly, that's not where your best hooks are going to come from, right?
Oh my goodness. And Chris P, Mr. Agency Man, what, and you're Mr. Testament, what you're always talking about is test, 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 test. What does this allow you to do in regards to being able to have a whole lot of different opportunities for testing a message when you don't have to keep having a person spend hours and hours? Think about that. That would be 14 hours if a person were to take the same concept, right? And they were had to write 14 different versions of that email. But in this, all they have to do is get 6 different things that I'm going to give them on a sheet of paper that they can cut and paste. And then they have 14 different, totally different versions of emails for you to look at, test, sift through, and work through. What does that do for an agency owner?
Yeah, the biggest thing is it's faster time to results. So I think that's something a lot of people I wouldn't say devalue, but they just don't think about it as like the more often you can send, the more offers you can make, the faster you can find what works and what doesn't. And also, to the other side of it is if you have an email that hits or an ad that hits, you can turn that into 14 different assets, like Orzi was talking about earlier. Is these assets are reusable, they're recyclable, and you can keep pumping them into the market and keep getting customers' eyes on the client's brand or business. So um, just faster time to results and more time to think about, okay, what other offers can I create while this one's out selling for me?
Now, Mr. Man, for clients and for agency, and we're not just talking about somebody cutting down on their time, but for somebody running an agency, your lifeblood is clients, right? And
Yep.
similar to what Chris O was talking about, having the time to not spend the time at the keyboard and actually have time to go look for clients. Don't you think that having something like this, we could fulfill on that thing we're talking about, which is how to double your clients? Don't you think you have more time to go find more clients and give them better, faster outputs?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm doing it right now. The more time I get to spend pulling the new revenue lever in the business, uh, the more I get to help clients and increase money and get more clients. The less time I'm spending writing emails and putting these together, the more time I get to grow the business. Because there's really only like 3 or 4 big levers you pull in the business. It's new revenue, fulfill an existing, buy something, or invest. So it's like if I'm spending more time getting more clients or getting better clients, um, the business is growing. Whereas if I'm sitting writing copy for a client, that's not growing new revenue; it's just fulfilling on existing revenue. So it's definitely giving me a ton more time to actually go do that and talk to the market, talk to clients.
All right. So before I reveal our number one person who really killed it, there was no question that there was no debate about who is number one. That was the easiest choice of all easy choices. But let me just share for every single person on here what they would be getting with those tools, because we've only just teased them and we haven't let them actually see them. So let me just go into letting them understand within Email Copy Academy, you would get access to email know, like, trust, and also because Chris O does not want you to be struggling with only knowing how to write these and not knowing how to get clients, because that's what the objective is there's also this thing called cold outreach email, where we go and we actually help you to understand how to use these skill sets to actually bring in clients, because that's pretty important to everybody, right? What good is knowing how to do something and not knowing how to turn it into dollars going to do for everybody? So they would get all of these different tools. They would get all the training that Chris O goes into regarding how to use those frameworks, how to understand the way to think about what's going to go in those frameworks, and not how, and especially how to not overthink this thing. Our number one person, that's what we all agreed on. We said we can see they didn't overthink this. All they did was they did exactly what we asked them to do. We said, go in this tool, put this in, put a good idea in, and then you're going to be able to get a good output. And all we want you to do, we only want you to do one thing: just tweak your output, put your human DNA into this thing so that we can see what you did. And if you did the framework right, this thing is going to be a winner. It's going to be a killer. Is everybody ready to see who was the challenge winner? Who is going to get access to every one of the tools that we release? I saw somebody asking about landing page tools, all the different types of tools we release. This person is getting full access to all of these different tools that we release. They're going to get super bragging rights that the king of all kings of email and the next in line, Mr. Chris P, all shared that they are the winner. They're the killer of this thing. Drum roll, please. Who's going to give me the drum roll?
Pearson.
Our winner is Mr. Ben Fitterman. Ben absolutely killed the game on this. It was hands down. There was no question. I think he only took 30 minutes in editing this thing because he wants it to be perfect. But if he would have just jumped in, I think you see the amount of edits he did, I think this could have been done in less than 10 minutes easily. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing too to remember with all these like times, like when people are
Mhm.
clocking in their times here, like this, like people had no prior experience using this, and this was the first time they did it. And like, you know, I'm pretty confident that the second, third, fifth, 10th time you use it, I don't think your time is going to increase. I think it's only going to decrease, right? Because the first time you're familiarizing yourself with the tool and seeing what kind of outputs you get. But this one was great. I mean, can you just scroll down real quick to the AI version? Let's
Oh
look at that
yeah.
first and
So
scroll back
so
up.
they can actually see that it's not going crazy difference. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's little pieces. Like I remember the day, like it was yesterday. I was sparring, or the day when D1 wrestler made me feel like a helpless toddler. It was a wake up call. That's when I realized I need a new strategy. So like within that, just that little line right there, like obviously like it jumps out to me because I was a D1 wrestler and I did jujitsu. But like the element of story that he has there, and then also like just the variance in sentences, like that's one of the things. Like I've used ChatGPT. Like sometimes if I'm like bored, I'm like, let me just see how it would write this Facebook ad for this thing that I'm working on, right? And I'm like, man, it just like it's all the same length sentences, and it's just like it was boring. Like this, like there's variance in the style of like how it's written. Like it was a wake up call. Like that's a short little sentence. Like, and if you studied like Abby and Justin Blackman's voice stuff, like they talk a lot about
Hmm.
like the rhythm of the writing, the different style of sentences that you use, and the structure of those. I don't want to like nerd out too much on that, but like there's just little things there that was like really cool to see it come out of the machine that way. And then it gave Ben a really great way to iterate from. And like the subject line of that original one was kind of like blah, it was kind of boring. But Ben did an excellent job of using, like, I love the style of I call it like voice of customer subject lines. Like it felt like I was getting strangled by a sloth on steroids. Like, and it's a quote, so it's almost like, who said this? What was the context? Like, what's the story here? So it kind of like opens people's eyes a bit, and they're like curious, right? And then when you get into the copy of this email, what's really cool is the piece that would totally mask this, where like no one would really ever be able to tell that it was written by, or a piece of it was written by AI, was like, what's up? I just got back from my morning roll. I want to share something with you. I'm pretty sure you're going to love. It's called whatever. And like he kind of talks, like he like introduces this story element, which makes it a personal conversational email, the way that I like to teach in ECA, and the way that a lot of us know how our favorite people that we follow, whose email newsletters we read all the time, like that's how they're kind of structured. And like even if you go to the third paragraph, a few years back, I was the grizzled 45-year-old black belt in our club. Yeah, the aches and pains are slowing me down, but I can still hold my own with the younger guys. Like the element of story lifts this up from just a generic email into a personal piece that does a great job of demonstrating the concepts that make the product work and leads people in the natural sequencing of the sales message down to making the decision to buy. So I thought it was great. I really, really thought this one was well done. And I think he knew exactly what pieces to change. Like, because remember that structure and a lot of the big important pieces of the email are not super different from the AI version, but he knew just to pepper in like these little elements of personal story that just transform the whole image of what it looked like.
And again, like you're sharing, he did not just make overhauls on this thing. He literally touched it. He just touched it with the subject line. He touched it with the intro to make it feel like a story. But if you look at the difference between the AI version and his story version, you can literally see all he did was he touched these areas. He didn't try to do a major overhaul and try to make the thing do something different. He stuck to the framework. He stuck to what you're teaching people to do, so you know that this thing has the potential for conversions. Last little bit I'll get on that one is just his inputs were incredible, but he actually, not a but, and he recognized something. He said one thing. He said, I'd like to understand how to use question 6 better. That seems to be the trick to getting really good output.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, I'm going to share with you, you're spot on. One of the things I'm going to really focus in on when I'm doing the portion that trains how to use it is how, if you use box 6 correctly, you will make your editing super easy. And he found that. So I saw that he went in here and how he did it. And I'll just give just a short portion because I know we're running out of time. But the short portion I want to give is what did he do in that box 6 in order to get these types of crazy outputs that you all are seeing? In his box 6, he said the hook is aging. The hook is aging is a reality, and as you get older, you cannot rely on your strength and speed to defeat younger opponents. I made this course after getting submitted by a D1 day one D1 wrestler who defeated me like he was sparring a toddler. It crushed me. 10 years of training in my brown belt meant nothing. I realized that I had to develop a new strategy for fighting that relied on slowing down my opponents and outsmarting them with my wits before applying an incredibly satisfying submission. The gratification came when I heard that D1 wrestler explain, I felt like I was fighting a bear sloth. You see, he wrote a little bit of story in there. And what that little bit of story did was it pumped up everything in the output. And that's what we'll teach you all how to do, is to put that in here. The other thing he did was when he defined his tone of sender, he said laid back, casual, with a funny style like Chris Rock. By doing that, he set this thing up to give incredible outputs like you all would get the same thing. So with that, then we have our winner of the challenge. I hope everybody had a great time, but most important, I hope everybody sees the power of what ECA can do, the power that you get secondhand, that somebody is saying that this is really the types of things they would use in their agency. And if anybody who is interested to get this, then you better get in this thing, because one of the things that is the truth is this took a lot of development time on my end. This has taken a lot of, you see, Orzi has the 2 little ones. The answer is he's going to give his time away from those little ones to be live with you all, to give you feedback about the things you're doing. And the people who go through this thing on their own, they don't get that. You'll only get recordings. But the people who are in this, they're going to get actual Orzi to help them to do this with it, to get his feedback, his time. We even may be able to grab Chris P to help support some of these things, because he'll give you from an agency perspective how this would work out. And me, if you have questions beyond what I give in the general training, because it will be live, you're going to get the opportunity to ask me, how do you, for your particular situation, do this thing? The easiest way to get this is to go to, drum roll please, copychief.com/ECA. And you get all the details about how to do that, like we call it right here, powerlifting program. Does ECA come with a novice powerlifting program? Only if you go to see him in New Jersey. Right?
Exactly.
So we're right at time. If anybody has any very specific questions, you can ask them. Otherwise, you know what we're doing. You know why we're here. You know what we're doing. We're here to support you. And we'll, wow, my goodness. And we'll make sure that we support you to double your clients, cut your writing time in half, and totally knock it out the ballpark with ECA. You guys have any sign off words for anybody, Orzi or Pearson?
Um, no, I just hope you guys use it. And like I said, this is everyone's like first ever time getting access to this thing. So like, I think we're only going to see like a crazy amount of, um, like people are going to get faster with it and better with it. And these people who took 45, 50 minutes, even people who took 17 minutes, like what if that gets cut in half? Like it's going to make you more efficient. And that's the thing. Like you only have so much time in the day. You only have so much available working hours. And what are those stats about like creative workers don't really work an 8 hour day. They work really like a 4 or 5 hour day. Well, like what if you could essentially double the output in those 4 or 5 hours, right? So it's all about EHR. It's all about getting your reps in faster and producing a more consistent result, just like a conveyor belt. Like if you can just churn stuff out that's super high quality, it has voice and personality and punch and power, then you're gonna do really good. So hope you guys kick ass.
All right. And Mr. Pearson, thank you so much for being our mystery judge. Thank you for going through all the submissions, peering through them, giving all your insights, looking at it from truly that guy who hires people to help within the agency work, that does a lot of testing, that has followed in the footsteps of Orzi to really lean into this email world. And one of the things I forgot to say earlier about that, which is really, really important, is there's enough room for everybody here, right? You're not competing with Orzi. Orzi has his own world in here. You have your own world, and there's room for a lot of people. That's what this was up here for. Rule number one, don't be number two. The best way to not be number two is to create your own way in here. And there are a lot of different avenues within doing within writing emails and being in the email field. And Orzi, you even go into that about how do you use this in different ways. And Pearson was one of the great success stories of that. What do you say, man?
Yeah, he was. I'm a little jealous. It took me a lot longer to get to that moment. I'm like, fuck this guy. No, he's done great. I'm like, I am jealous. So
How fast? How
proud of him.
fast did you jump in this world, Pearson? Just like for just the last, as we wrap it up, is you tell
Yep.
them how fast you were able to use ECA to change you and your family's life, my man.
I'd say all time in total less than 6 months. I was trying to freelance for about a year by myself. Found Copy Chief ECA about 4 to 6 months in. I was hit my stride, and then a year after that, that's where the big money and the better clients started happening. So there's the timeline can be quick. It can be slower too. Once you have the tools and the frameworks and things, it's really up to you how fast or slow you want to go. Similar to, or we talked about this before in your emails and stuff, is like um, it's not about what's going on in the world. It's about what are you putting into, like, what are you doing to make this happen. There is a way to figure it out, and once you have the tools, it just gets easier.
Well, what would you have been able to do if you had these tools to help you when you went through ECA? That's the last part I want everybody to hear is
Yeah. So
what would this have done for you? Knowing what you know now, if you had this, how would it have changed?
yeah, it would just accelerated results and given me more time to find better clients because before this tool, before this automation stuff, I was spending an hour and a half writing each email, and now I'm down under 15 minutes per email if I'm writing it. If the team's writing it, they're around 20 minutes or less, and reviewing it is again, it's just getting back to time to result, time to send. And getting that time back, it feels like I get to choose what I want to do with my time outside of that. And I'm not chained to my keyboard. I'm not chained to the computer. I can go out and do stuff and have ideas and ideate and work on the business. So the time reduction is a thing, the time gain on the other side of it as well as a thing. And also just being able to be more valuable to clients. You get to create assets for them now, as opposed to, struggling to get a couple a day. You can do dozens a day and say, okay, well, we're testing this month. Let's go for it. You get to strategize and think more than be the keyword doing.
So thanks everybody for being here with us. I hope you got more than your time's worth. Everybody on the other side of the world who was with us, thank you sincerely for spending this time with us. It's always a pleasure for me to be with these superstars. I'm just hosting and pulling this thing together and pulling us through this. All the winners, like I said, well, 3, 2, 1 and the 2 people who got honorable mention, reach out to me. I got something for you, and we'll have a lot of fun with this. So again, that is copychief.com/ECA if you want to get in here and get some of this goodness, okay? If we have nothing else, I'm going to let these two guys get back to it. One of these guys is about to go play with kitties, and the other guy's about to go get a whole bunch more money and chase some clients down. And that's all we have for today, guys. You all good?